This is Flatlander Mike coming to you again. This is part 2 of the seal replacement, and I'm going to just pull the seal out with a seal puller. I'm going to turn the camera so you can see it, hopefully. Okay, I'm going to stick this puller in there. That might be a tough one. There's not a lot of room in here. I've got no choice now. I've stuck the puller in there and it's messed the seal up, so we're going to get it out somehow. Try the other end here. There we go. So we got some oil there. That was pretty easy. Alright. We have the other seal here. It's kind of rubber coated, so you won't put anything on it. Just some grease around the lip in here. I'm going to put it on. I got a piece of old exhaust pipe I'm going to tap it in with, hopefully. Now the pipe fits right around there. Small hammer. That's hard to get at. Put my hand on the top here. About got it. Very carefully. You don't want to bend that seal at all. You bend it, you put another one in. Okay. Tap it on that side. So it's a little bit crooked there. Okay, we're pretty good there. Pretty even all the way around. Okay. Alright, so we got the seal out, we got the new one in, and what I did was I cleaned this all with brake clean. It's all nice and clean. And then I cleaned the threads on the shaft up in there with brake clean. I cleaned the nut threads with brake clean because we're going to put a little bit of Loctite on there. And it's got to be absolutely clean. Alright, so here we go. We're going to put this in here. Okay. There we go. And we got a washer. It's in there. Okay, and we got blue Loctite. I'm going to put Drop on the threads. Whoa, that was more than a drop. Just on one side, and when we put it in, it's going to spread around. Okay, going to screw that in there. That nut. I think someone's had this apart before and they didn't put Loctite on it. That's why the nut backed off. That's what was causing the leak. The oil was leaking past the splines on the shaft and then leaking out past the nut because the nut wasn't tight. Okay, so now I got my torque wrench set 137 foot-pounds, which is quite substantial. Now I got this in four-wheel drive lock, so I'm hoping it's going to lock and it's not going to move. Okay, it's not going to work. I'm going to have to get help. Okay, so I'm back again. I got someone to hold the brakes. It did help a bit, but there's still a little bit of play in the drive shaft, but I managed to get the 137 foot-pounds torque on there, on that nut. And when the Loctite dries, it'll be fine. So anyway, next step is we're going to get the drive shaft ready and put the differential back in place. And so when I get set up to do that, I'll turn the camera back on. Okay, so the next step is we're going to put some lithium grease. I cleaned off the axle. Okay, so this end has a little rubber. This goes in the differential end. And I'm going to put just a little bit of grease on there. I'm using lithium grease. It's what they call for. I don't know what this is for, but so put that in there. I'm going to put some grease around. This is what they call for in the manual, is lithium grease. Put some on the splines. Okay, then I'm going to reach under here. I'm going to put a bunch in there. Okay, so now we got grease in there. Just push this in, the splines, and then I'm going to put that little rubber on top. Okay, hopefully it doesn't fall out. This end, there's a hinge inside. Pull that back. There. Okay, pull that back. That's the rubber seal for the other side. Plastic grease on there. You don't want too much, but you want enough to be able to, that it's going to lubricate everything and allow that to slip. Okay, I'm going to put a bunch on the spring. I'm going to stick that in there. Okay, I'm going to rotate it up. Pull it back. almost there. I don't know if you can see it. I'll move it up here so you can see out here. So there's the splines, and I'm just about on the coupler there. So I'm going to just lift it a bit, twist it, and there it goes into the splines. Okay, and there's the rubber back end. That's the cover that stops the dirt from getting into that joint. Okay, and then next we're going to bolt up the differential. Okay, our next step is to put the differential on. Okay, so what I did was I put some famous anti-seize on these bolts. They were a little corroded, so I wire brushed them first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hopefully lift that up. Okay, I'm just going to get started. Oop, lift right in. Okay, and this side, I'm going to put that in a little ways. Okay, then we got a bracket on the top. Okay. So these ones go through. Flat washer nut. Alright, and this one through flat washer nut. Okay, and then I'm gonna put this bottom one on. Turn a little bit there. Put a little bit of anti-seize. Really helps, especially if you're going to be going through the muck and stuff. It helps keep things so that you can take them apart if you need to. Hopefully you never have to, but things happen. Okay, so next bracket goes on here. And I believe that's the way it goes. And a nut. Washer and a nut. Now I'm not tightening anything down yet. I'm going to make sure that these bolts in here and the bracket are there. I'm going to line up all the bolts, tighten it down, and then we'll go from there. So I have all the bolts here. So I'm going to put see, there's a couple bolts here. I put a little bit of anti-seize on them. You see, they do go through the frame and they are exposed. The mud and the crud. Okay, 12 millimeter. Get them started. So I'm not tightening anything down yet. Just make sure I get them well started. Okay, then I'm going to start these other top ones. Now I went ahead and I cut out a piece of aluminum for a heat shield. So I'm just going to put these loosely in here. Apparently some guys have had problems with them overheating the differentials and blowing the seals, burning the seals out on the axle shaft coming out of the differential, and also the differential pinion bearing, pinion seal. So I went ahead and I built the aluminum shield that bolts on here. I will put that on as soon as I'm done tightening these other bolts. Okay, so those are loose in there. Okay, so I'm going to tighten that down. And those are 17 millimeter. So I'm going to start with these ones here. Okay, I'm just tightening these up now. There is torque on these. But I'm sorry I don't have it, so I'm going to just tighten them from my experience. Kind of a tough one to get at. Extension on there. Turn it up, it hits the axle. There we go. That's two. Okay, next one is front one. Next we're going to tighten the ones on the frame first. 12mm head. Not too tight, just right. Okay. Next, we're going to tighten this last bolt, mounting bolt for the differential. There we go. Okay, so now we've got these top ones left. Okay, so I'm going to take them back out because I built a plate. Okay, so I just built this plate. Got a slot here because there's a part that stands up here, a ridge, and it just slides over the top. And put the bolts in. That's 12. Here. So I drilled the plate out so it fits these bolts. I was going to put it underneath the bracket, but then I thought that might change the position of the differential, so, or they call it a final drive. So I slotted it out on the top so it fits on top. And then I'm going to add a couple of bolts and big washers and bolt it to the frame, front and back. And we'll see how it works out. I might have to add a couple of more bolts on the back side on this side over here to hold it on, but we'll see how it works. Okay, got 12 ratchet here. Okay, snug that up. So this should stop the heat from going down. Okay, so next I got a couple of bolts and washers, just 3/8 bolts, locking nuts. Put them underneath. These washers are for shock absorbers. Been in automotive, I had them lying around in my box for 30 years. So thought I'd put them to good use. Okay, put this one on here. Sixteenths. As you can see, maybe you can't see, I put the engine support in. Didn't seem to make much difference, but I don't know, maybe it's not the right size. It's a little bit smaller. Only a 5/16 instead of a 3/8, and the rubbers aren't quite as big and thick. So that could be part of the problem. I thought I'd try it, see what happens. Okay, so that's on there now. The next step now, we're going to just put this brake caliper back on. I've got it back on here, and I'm just going to tighten up the bolts. This is for your parking brake. And if I just get the right. $14mm. Okay. I guess one thing I didn't tell you is there's a plastic skid plate goes on here. Need to take that off, which is only just 4 little 6mm bolts, 10mm heads, and it comes right off. I'd already done the brake pads on this, and that's another story. Very interesting story. Well, this concludes our replacing of the seal, and all I did was change the filter, oil filter on the engine, and filled it up with oil. There's lots of videos on already covering that, so that's not a problem. And I cleaned it off underneath just in case I get another leak. I'll know if it's fresh or not. Filled it up with oil, I started it up, and I'll let her sit, and I will check the oil later. Put the skid plate back on underneath, and we're all set to go.